Of the many things in this world that I find absolutely amazing, one of them is definitely the tendency of corporations and people alike to buy something, sometimes even something that cost them a lot of money back in the day, and then for whatever reason, they never end up using it. Hello there, everyone. You're watching UXW Bill, and today I have something that fits squarely into that category. While I cannot prove it for certain, I believe that this American Power Conversion Smart UPS Model 600 has been sitting in its original box since 1994. Again, I'm not 100% certain of that, but we can probably compare the serial number that's on the box to what's inside it. Now, as much as I might happen to feel bad about opening this box and spoiling the fact that this thing is, in all probability, brand new, well, nothing stays new forever. And I thought it would certainly make an interesting video when you and I find out together if this thing still happens to work after all of these years. I don't know that it will. I've decided to go ahead and film this video outside, not because I feel that there's going to be any risk of this unit not working or making stinky smoke that would smell up the house, but rather because I hear that the number of nice days we've got left are probably very limited. It's my understanding that as early as this Saturday or Sunday, we could be facing snow here in Illinois. Hard to believe, isn't it? But it seems that the Illinois Department of Transportation considers it credible, at least, because I have seen snow plows driving around absolutely everywhere. So let's go ahead, take a look and see what's inside this box. Now, as previously mentioned, I always find this kind of thing surprising that people pay such good money for this stuff, even though I'm well aware of the reasons why things like this can happen. They are legion in number, but some of them would certainly include projects getting abandoned, companies going out of business, being bought out, people leaving or passing away, something along those lines. Sometimes people that buy these things, they never manage to affect the plans that they had in mind for them if they bought them for personal use. It's certainly much more common to find this sort of thing in a corporate environment because, well, you know, businesses, they tend not to always have the most careful controls on spending. They don't always operate their accounting department under a strict dictatorship, and sometimes even if they do, it's possible to sneak things in under the radar. So the first thing that's in this particular box is the documentation that came with this uninterruptible power supply, including contact information for American Power Conversion. You can definitely tell that this is well before the era in which most companies had a website. Some of them certainly did in 1994, but American Power Conversion was not one of them. They didn't even give an email address on the literature included with this uninterruptible power supply. There are certainly some interesting things in here. I took the liberty of looking at this before I made this particular video. This is probably the only part of this I should have actually shot indoors, because although it's calm right now, the wind might have other ideas in due time about my plans to read and demonstrate this documentation on the video. The first piece of documentation we have, and I'm sure that this has very much been planned, is mention of an extended warranty. Up to 3 years in addition to your factory provided coverage. So you could end up with a total of 5 years of warranty coverage. Like most extended warranties, this certainly wasn't cheap. It would have run you in the neighborhood of $115 for your Smart UPS Model 600. But in all fairness to American Power Conversion, one thing you did get if you purchased an extended warranty was coverage for the batteries. So this might not have been a bad deal, especially if you plan to pay American Power Conversion's price for replacement batteries, because most UPS batteries, they only manage to last around 3 to 5 years, depending upon how bad the power is in your area. I have seen one that was way out there on the bathtub curve of uninterruptible power supply battery lifetime, but that was because it only had to survive until a generator kicked on. That particular battery lasted for 1 decade. Speaking of things that last, one of the things that American Power Conversion provided next, everybody seems to throw one of these in, or at least they did back in the day, an equipment protection policy offering ludicrous amounts of replacement insurance for any product that happens to be damaged while it is attached to, well, whoever's product, power protection product. Protection. Wow, I can't even pronounce that word. Maybe I should just quit making this video, you know? Just go home, you know, give it up and and take a nap or something. That's always a good solution to the world's problems. Just take a nap. You ever think about that? Maybe we'd have a lot less fighting in certain parts of the world, wars and stuff like that, if people just calmed right down, took a nap. But that's veering dangerously close to the subject of politics, and we're certainly not here to discuss that. This is one of these grandstanding efforts to make it really sound like this protection policy is worth at least the paper it's printed on, though a lot of them aren't, because although it declares here on the front that whereas APC is committed to innovative solutions to real customer problems through engineering excellence and a whole bunch of other stuff that you can pause the video and read by yourself if you want to, because I'm not going to go through it. They even had their CEO of the time, Roger B. Dowdell Jr., sign the thing. Well, it's a facsimile of his signature, but I guess that's almost as good as having your equipment replaced under a policy like this, isn't it? But then once you get past all the marketing bump, well, you move into the fine print that tells you all the ways that you can lose under the terms of this protection policy. And basically what it ends up saying in not so many words is if they have any opportunity whatsoever to find out that something may have been incorrectly wired or hooked up, maybe the surge simply exceeded the unit's capabilities to suppress it, well, guess what? No protection, no replacement or repaired product for you. 4 ways you can get the most out of your new APC product: service programs, UPS management software, accessories, and power protection. Some of the things that are in this particular brochure, in addition to being quite expensive, are also quite interesting. There are, of course, the warranty and service programs, but those aren't the ones that I'm really interested in. My interest picks up in the area of discussion covering PowerShoot and PowerShoot Plus software. And apparently it's noontime. That's what that siren is, in case you happen to be wondering about that. It's nothing going wrong. Although I'm sure there are some people who are fast forwarding through the video and won't have heard me say that. And then they'll be like, OMG, UXW Bill, what was happening? Nothing serious, I want to assure you of that much. Getting back to the discussion of the PowerShoot and PowerShoot Plus software, amongst the many things listed here, one of the things that was supposed to be included with this uninterruptible power supply, but that I did not get, along with a smart interface cable, is the so-called Power Doctor for DOS software. If anyone out there has a copy of this, I would certainly like to know about it. You can feel free to send me a private message or post a comment. You know, if you have a download link, so much the better, because it seems that in this day and age, American Power Conversion has long since forgotten about that. There are interface kits for various situations. I do find this one on the bottom here interesting. An interface for a PS2 mouse port, obviously for a Novell NetWare environment. You remember when that was something important? I know it's still around. Somehow Novell is still in business these days. I think most of their line of business these days is host communications with things like IBM mainframes and similar, and also the Linux development area with their purchase of various Linux-related companies over the years. But I think that NetWare is still something they do to this very, very day, although I haven't seen a NetWare system in years. Certainly not since about 2003 or 4 at the latest. Here we have some UPS accessories. I've seen later versions of almost all of these. Some of them are very interesting. One of the ones that I found moderately humorous is this wall mount bracket. Now this seems like a good way for someone to attach a UPS to a wall and then later have it fall down and crown somebody. Does that look real secure to you? It doesn't look real secure to me, especially if somebody were by chance to hang that from a wall where it wasn't really all that securely mounted, like they drove it into drywall or something and didn't happen to choose a stud in the wall and it pulled out and fell down and killed somebody. That wouldn't be good, would it? No, it wouldn't. Probably shouldn't be laughing about that. Some of these also have quite a homespun look to them, like this Measure Ups unit, which was a climate sensor and also capable of monitoring what are called dry contacts, contacts that might be triggered from, say, a motion sensor or a security alarm system, maybe a water sensor, something along those lines. But the most interesting of all of these has to be this swap box that they have discussed here. I've never seen one of these in the wild. It would be kind of an interesting device. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was in a situation where I really could have used one of these. Evidently, this thing's purpose was to allow the replacement of a failed or UPS that needed service while not removing power to the load. So even though your load would not have been protected, it would have been at least able to stay powered up. I might see if I could find one of those somewhere in the wild sometime. You know, my work as a freelance computer consultant tends to take me everywhere and see a little bit of everything along the way. And then we have UPS accessories for simple network management protocol. These are cards that sometimes fit into a so-called smart slot, although this particular model predates American Power Conversion uninterruptible power supplies with smart slots. But you can see the various products there, and if you're interested, you can pause the video if you wish to read about any of them in much greater detail. And here's an overview of the other side of the brochure, which talks less about accessories and more about other uninterruptible power supply members of the American Power Conversion product family. We have the basic ones, the back UPS series, all the way from these little tiny ones like the 250, the 400. Those you see just about everywhere. Even today, there's still a surprising number of those things around. They just last forever as long as you keep putting good batteries in them, but they have very nasty looking output from their inverters. It is modified sine wave, but only just. Then we move up a little bit in the market to the Smart UPS series. These actually have true sine wave output when they're running on battery, or at least the most of them do. Not all of them do. The smaller ones, below about 600, 700 volt amps or thereabout, apparently they are modified sine as well. I don't know if that's true of something like this little 250 up here, but I would assume it probably is. In fact, I would be willing to bet that it's nothing more than a slightly rebadged version of one of these back UPS products. You can read the text on each of these pages if you want to pause the video, should you be interested in doing so. Same thing for the Smart UPS series. And down there's the list of actual products. There's pictures of them as they would have existed back then. I think the design on some of these looks very 1980s if you ask me. Then we have the RM and XL series, which allowed for extended runtime through the connection of additional battery packs. I actually have a 2200 XL sitting in the garage from around 2003 that at some point I will definitely be treating to a replacement set of batteries, because that thing is just awesome. I could think of a million interesting things to do with that. What I have planned for it at some point is probably setting it up such that it will maintain power to various circuits in a house that I do not yet have or happen to live in. Boy, everybody with an exhaust problem just has to drive by here today, don't they? Here's the Matrix UPS. These are actually the enterprise and data center models. It looks like these are more of those whatever they called them on the other page. Gosh, I can't even think of it now. You know what they say about aging, right? A swap box. Aging's all in the mind, and the mind is the first thing that goes. And I'm staring down the barrel of my 33rd birthday. A lot of people seem surprised that I'm not older than that, you know, but I'm not. So there's information about the Matrix models. All of them very beige. By the time this was published, American Power Conversion had moved from Peacedale, Rhode Island, which is where they were in the 80s and early 1990s, to their present location on Fairgrounds Road in West Kingston, Rhode Island. So there's a look at the brochure with all their little extras and stuff in it. And then here's the owner's manual itself. I might scan this and post a link to it in the video description, because I'm certainly not going to take the time to go over it here on the video. We don't have that much time left on this particular videotape. Here's a computer that should have been plugged into an APC product a lot sooner. It's really not very happy, is it? This mentions various places where you can get in touch with American Power Conversion. Again, if you want to read any of this, just pause the video. And of course, you're supposed to register your product. At the same time, you get a CompuServe introductory membership. How many of you out there remember CompuServe? I know there's a couple of you that will. I never used it personally, but I certainly know what it was back in the day. America Online later absorbed them. Must have a computer, modem, communications software, a terminal emulator, and a telephone line. And then here's what's on the back of this thing. Come on, focus. A long way from Rhode Island, that's for sure. Ought to drop that in the mail just to see what they'd do. Probably get returned. Or just thrown in the trash. Here's the product registration. Nosy companies that want to know everything about you, including all the things you've ever done over your entire lifetime. Look at that. Safety warnings. So important that they posted it in several languages, despite the fact that this is primarily an English manual. They tell you roughly about how the unit works, when it cuts onto battery, how it does that. They talk about the Smart Boost capability to bring up low line voltage or bring down high line voltage, although I don't think this unit has the capability to buck high line voltage to a lower level. I think it has to go to the battery in order to do that. Another thing that's very interesting about this particular unit, this is something that American Power Conversion and Schneider Electric consider to be a trade secret in this day and age, but they included it in this manual. The pinouts for the serial port on the back of the unit, explaining not only what you can use it to drive and its driving limit capability, so that you don't inadvertently overload any of the transistors or simple logic chips that are operating the serial port. They also tell you where to go to connect the smart data lines, and this thing has an unregulated 24-volt DC output, which is probably intended to power something like an AP9600 external enclosure with a management card of some kind in it. Although the ones they mention in the brochure, they all operate externally because that was the only way that they could operate. So having looked at the documentation, I think it's high time that we took this thing out of here and just gave it a quick overview to see what kind of shape it was actually in and whether or not it might actually work, despite the fact that it's been sitting in the box all of these years. So we'll take these foam things off. They'll probably blow away, just watch. And then we'll see if I am stout enough, and I'm probably not because my exercise regimen consists largely of typing on a computer keyboard and using a mouse. Maybe sometimes the strenuous activity of lifting the television remote when the commercials on Cozy TV and MeTV express that I'm not the demographic to which they are catering, to say the least. Let's see here. Oh gosh, I did manage to do it. I'm proud of myself. I just want to tell you that. So let's see what we've got here. See if the serial number matches what's on the box. This is 4341. And sure enough, this is the box that it came in. So I would be willing to bet, given the lack of wear on these outlets, the lack of wear on the unit itself, that it very probably is still truly new and unused. We have the quality assurance information here. They still do this to this very day. They tell us that Ray tested it. I don't know if Ray would still be with American Power Conversion, Schneider Electric or not, but I seriously doubt it. 21 years on, because for a lot of people that is more than a career, especially in this day and age. It passed the tests back then on 6/17/1994. So let me go ahead and take it out of this plastic wrap and we'll give it an inspection. I want to check the batteries in particular, because the one thing you can say about lead acid batteries, they are not low self-discharge devices, and they are probably ruined at this point. But I'm going to try it anyway, as long as they don't seem to be shorted, and especially if they have even the tiniest little bit of charge in them, because that might mean there is still some hope for them. I'd like for all of you in the viewing audience to know that my commitment to integrity in video making is such that I have absolutely no intention of engaging in any shenanigans whatsoever, despite the fact that I love the word shenanigans as concerns a report on the condition of the batteries inside this unit. I have not plugged it in. I haven't done anything of the sort. I have certainly been accused of faking various videos in the past, but such is absolutely not the case. So true is my commitment to the people who watch the things that I do. So I wasn't sure what I would see when I opened this up. I had plans to maybe say that portions of what you're going to see may be edited for brevity, as if I had any idea what that word meant. But it looks like everything is pretty straightforward here, although it is American Power Conversion's official position, according to the user's manual for this unit, that it is not to be opened by the end user and that any service of the batteries must be performed at an authorized service center. Everything that's in here certainly looks to be in exceptional shape, and it might be some people's opinion that the capacitors in this unit, especially the electrolytics, particularly the electrolytics, should be replaced on general principle alone, but I feel pretty comfortable in just plugging it in and throwing caution to the wind. Just see what happens. You only live once, you know. So let's see if I can get this power, if I can tap this connection to the battery, get a meter lead in there without pushing it off into the nether regions of the UPS. I may have to take a little break here, but no, I've got an idea. I brought some alligator clips with me. This would be as good a way as any to do it. That way I don't need 5 hands and a great desire to sprout a tripod. Should be a 24 volt system here, two 12 volt batteries in series with one another. So let's just see what our multimeter friend has to say about it. Well, they're pretty flat. I figured they would be, but they're not totally dead, so that has to be an encouraging sign. I'd say, what, about 0.7 volts between the two of them, probably 0.6, somewhere in there. I'm nobody's idea of a mathematician, but that means it should be at least reasonably safe to plug this thing in, throw caution to the wind, and see what happens. Now, in case you're wondering, I believe these batteries have been electrically isolated from the unit for all these years because it has this hard power switch on the back. Also want to point out that it was made in the United States of America. You certainly wouldn't see that anymore. The newest APC Smart UPS I have that was still made in the US is a late 2001 era model. I think they still maintain a plant at West Kingston, Rhode Island for production of much more piddly things like smart slot enclosures and stuff like that, but the days of UPS manufacturing there are probably over for good, unfortunately. Alright everybody, the stage is set, the characters are in place. It's time for the phrase that you all seem to love so very, very much. Smoke test! May not have heard it over the loud exhaust on that truck, I don't know. But let's see what happens here. You get to see me run away like a chicken if something goes up in smoke. Nothing has yet, although I haven't turned the master switch on the back of the unit. And I don't think... Our batteries seem to have gotten a lot worse, assuming I was even reading the multimeter properly at first, which I may not have been. I may not have been multimetering very well. Let's see what happens here, folks. I don't think anything happened. I didn't hear a hum. I didn't hear anything. Of course, sometimes these units have to have good batteries in order to work. I think it's plugged in the garage, but nothing seems to be happening. Don't even get a site wiring fault indicator, although we don't actually have a site wiring fault at this particular site. Hard to believe that I own an extension cord from which the ground pin has not been bobbited, but I do. I may have to charge these batteries outside of the unit to see if there's any hope of it coming to life whatsoever, because the microcontroller in some of these units will not allow them to operate unless they see enough battery voltage to start up. And it's probably not seeing enough battery voltage at this point. So I may have to take those batteries out and charge them separately just to see what they might do. I just don't know for absolutely certain. The charging circuit in this thing seems to be the same as what's used in the simpler back UPS models. Just a conventional linear regulator, an LM340T, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything even with a direct connection to it, so it may be bad news bears, I don't know. And now you can be sure that things are taking a turn for the serious. That's right. It's time for your examination. The doctor will see you now. This won't hurt a bit. We may have to amputate. Problem is, I need this in a bladed version. But changing the batteries inside this unit is definitely not something for the faint of heart. They didn't go out of their way to make it very easy. You have absolutely got to be kidding me, right? I have to admit I don't know what the done thing is as far as getting the batteries out of one of these older Smart UPS units. I probably did it incorrectly. Although I don't know, this little cage that goes around the batteries has this mounting bracket that ends up protruding through the primary circuit board, and on its way out it seems to get caught under this large black adjustment potentiometer. But now that the batteries are out of here, we're going to see if this thing has any sign of life whatsoever. I'm going to use my variable regulated power supply to try and soft start this thing, gradually ramp up the voltage to it. And I think these units are cold start capable, so we'll see if this thing can actually manage to pull this off. But I must caution anyone who might be entertaining thoughts of doing similar, this is a dangerous thing to do. Do not try this yourself unless you have an excellent understanding of exactly what is going on and what is at play here, because hazardous voltages, hazardous frequencies, and high levels of current that could burn, hurt, cause explosions, or even blind you. Alright, sermon ends. Let's see what we can do with this thing, if I'm even making good electrical contact, which I'm probably not. Can hardly see the displays on that thing. Yeah, I don't think I'm making very good electrical contact because there's no current draw. Of course, the switch on the back isn't turned on. We could probably do that. Notice I'm sitting right here in the line of fire. This is unusually brave for me. We'll see if it comes to life by any chance. Got about 24 volts on there. I'm not seeing anything, I'm not hearing anything, but I may not be making good electrical contact because using a meter lead for this is not recommended procedure. What I wouldn't give to know where my alligator clips are right now. The keykeeper probably stole them all. Took them to his house. Alright, attempt number 2 as I'm trying to run out of videotape here. I made a change to my connection and I heard this thing hit its current limit, so I must have done something right. Alright, let's see what happens here, if anything. Alright, that should be sufficient. Let's see if this thing's control panel shows any sign of life whatsoever. It certainly doesn't sound like it. And none of the fuses are obviously blown. So I guess the poor thing's just dead. I'll putter around with it a little bit more, see if I get it to do anything interesting. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching, and as always, feel free to leave a comment if you have one. Alright folks, very quickly, and that's what it'll have to be. I think this thing might be trying to claw its way back to life. I gave it a little boost from this power supply, and now we get a click. And if I operate the front panel, well, I gotta turn it on first. Doesn't sound happy, but it's trying. I think we need some good batteries.